the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internets before we go ahead and get started. We've got some serious business to attend to today. You know how it goes. We can't start rambling here until we know the tubes are working. It looks like they are. That's tremendous. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gov't. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the special counsel, Jack Smith. He wants Trump gagged immediately, and yesterday on the show, we went through this back and forth, this little conundrum that the government has found itself in, caught between these two poles of wanting to balance what they call due process of the law and the integrity of the criminal investigation against Donald Trump's free speech rights and his ability to comment about an ongoing political catastrophe in this country, which is otherwise known as the Department of Justice. So we know that there was a back and forth. We went through a bunch of this yesterday, and the judge ordered them to meet and confer. The judge said, all right, listen, you two are bickering. And so why don't you get together, propose some dates for hearing, and then at that hearing, I'm going to decide the scope of this protective order. How far is Trump going to be gagged? What can his defense say? What can they not say? Remember, when we talked about the actual proposed protective order, the government wanted Trump to not even be able to, take his notes with him and stuff like that. I mean, it was ridiculous. So we're going to go through the latest on this. They filed a notice. They did actually meet. They came up with some dates. And this case is, I mean, these people, you can just feel the animosity from both sides here. They just are, it's personal, all right? It's absolutely personal, and you can feel it. There's also going to be the government's response, and I want to go through this because they're now saying, Trump's lawyers are out there on the media. And yesterday we played several clips of John Lauro, and Trump's attorney, who was all over the media. He was actually talking with CNN and defending this case, and he's doing some serious damage. He had Dana Bash, who was on CNN all flustered out. I thought my whole worldview is different. And so he's being effective, and they want him to shut up. They want Trump to shut up. They want his lawyers to shut up. We know that at some point they're probably going to have people like us here shut up because we're contesting the DOJ, spreading misinformation. They want to prosecute their political opponents in the dark of night. And we're going to go through the filing because the judge is going to set a hearing and then issue a ruling. Then we're going to turn our attention to this civil case. We spent a lot of time on the Judge Kaplan verdict, and you remember this one, this woman here, who, in my opinion, lost her case. She claimed that Trump did the old R on her, the old, the hibbity-dibbity, involuntary hibbity-dibbity, in a dressing room at Bergdorf's, however long ago that was. And the verdict came out on that, and the jury said there was no involuntary hibbity-dibbity. There was, however, DJ Diddles, using the fingers to spin some records. DJ Diddles was something that they said, yes, Trump did that, but there was no involuntary hibbity-dibbity. And we're asking ourselves, that's strange because that's what Carroll said happened. I mean, it was all about the hib taking place in that dressing room. And then the jury said, well, we don't believe you because, well, as we know, she's kind of a nutso. And Trump filed a counterclaim because Carroll was saying that Trump actually did do the hibbity. And Trump said, no, he didn't. The verdict said from the jurors that I did not do that. And so he submitted a counterclaim. And Judge Kaplan, this judge, who we know is just about as boiling anti-Trump as you can read in a court transcript, this guy issued an opinion on that counterclaim, and we'll go through it. And so we'll go into all that in detail. Then we're going to go into this interesting article that was published. What's fun about the left is they have to reveal themselves. Oftentimes when you think about, darkness and evil and negative energy and these spirits that might inhabit our world, oftentimes one of the mechanisms by which they operate is by revealing themselves because they have to tell somebody about their debauchery. And so here, Nancy Pelosi sat down and they had this very interesting article where she was explaining how she's been playing the long game. Okay, this came over from New York Mag, says that she's the antagonist. She played an essential role in Trump's historic indictment. Okay, when I read it, I thought this meant impeachment, which was like, okay, that's her role. She's the House of Representatives, Speaker of the House. Okay, no. It's indictment. It's indictment, not impeachment. Okay, so that's weird because what does she have to do with the Department of Justice at all? And look at this photo of her, right? This very evil photo of which is they have to reveal themselves. It's this weird thing that they do. So we're going to read through that. We've got this other clip of Nancy who comes out. She's doing this weird thing with her eyes. Watch as she goes through this clip for like 7 minutes. She's looking, I don't know if she's reading, but they're spazzing out all over the place as she does this little propaganda piece about Trump's indictment. And then people like this guy who is called Joe Brzezinski, married to Mika. He's on her show that she hosts on MSNBC. And he is just going hysterical. I mean, he's hitting the panic button and totally freaked out that Trump might win, saying it's going to literally destroy the country. It's going to destroy the FBI. It's going to destroy the DOJ and all of those things. And we're sitting here like, yes, we know. Yeah, of course, that's the whole plan. Hello, where you been, Joe? So we'll go through that. And then interesting couple clips I saw about Mike Pence. And we've been sort of decompiling Mike Pence's claims here for a long time. And for some time, we were giving him a little bit of leeway and some flexibility, you know, the political ups and downs, a benefit of the doubt you give to certain people. But then he started coming out and saying that Trump was asking him to violate the Constitution. We got a little bit irritated about that because that never happened at all. And now Pence has really dug his heels in and he's going to be fighting back against Trump. He got asked, are you going to testify? And he says, yeah, sure, of course I'll testify. I mean, if I get a subpoena, what can I do? I mean, what am I not going to testify? Sure, I'll show up. And then we know from Trump's defense that they're actually perfectly okay with that because Mike Pence has said a lot about this before. He said a ton about what Trump has asked of him, what his rights and responsibilities were. And he's changed his story many times now, saying that they asked me to overturn the election. We're going, what? Ask you to overturn the election? Is that what they asked you? Mike Pence, just slam your gavel down and suddenly I'm president? No, that's not really what happened. So the words get twisted and twisted and twisted. But if Pence is consistent and he actually complies and testifies with what he said previously, he's going to be a great witness for the government, for the defense, which is Trump. And so Trump's lawyers are saying, yeah, well, he's going to be our star witness. We'll bring him right out because he's going to explain the only thing he was asked was to do stuff that was within his power. And so, my friends, as you can see, we've got a lot to get to today. And if you want to join us, oh, I forgot. This morning, we had another great segment for our members only. This morning, we had a very interesting segment about Elvis Chan. We've talked a lot about this guy, Elvis Chan here. Turns out he lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. He was having multiple meetings with Facebook, but when he sat down for his deposition, in front of Congress, he lied. He said, no, I never talked to them about Hunter's laptop at all. So shocking. An FBI agent who's a liar. You're kidding. We talked about this morning for our members. So that video will be out a bit later. And we'd love it if you joined us and became a member. We do members only morning streams where we dig into the day's news right fresh and early here. Sometimes it's in the afternoon for our East Coast friends, but we hit the Trump docket, we go through the presidential schedule, the congressional committee schedules, we hit the headlines, and we hit all the stories over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We also have a YouTube membership where you can join up on YouTube, get all the same stuff. The only thing on YouTube is we ask you to join us for our members only after party by joining up on Telegram. You can grab the link for the Telegram in the community tab over on Locals. On YouTube, in the community tab on YouTube. And also, we made some serious improvements to our dark mode at robertgovea.com. Oh, it's looking fresh. Woo! Shout out to David, who was hard at work on this yesterday. So you can see we've got a new dark mode button down here. And when we flash the dark mode, boom, we've got that nice white stroke around the images, around the graphics. And so you can go over here and you can navigate to the reports, and you can get the reports also in this fancy new dark mode. And by the way, we have a guest post also. We have a guest post from Woods Precision Arms, which is right here if you want to read about laser devices on your firearms. Check it out, robertgovea.com. And we're super excited about it. Thanks for signing up for the daily newsletter and for signing up for the mind map over at robertgovea.com. And now, my friends, let's be properly nutrified and fortified and healthified, courtesy of our friends at Field of Greens, and I'm dressed to match today. Of course, we all would like to lose some of those leftover pounds, from the weekend, from the pandemic, from whatever you had at that birthday party. But how sick are you of all the ads for the weight loss pills and fad diets? We've all been there. We've all done that. And we know they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, the weight would probably just fall right off. But vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that and eat that every day? 5 servings is a lot. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, specific fruits and vegetables you are not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you are going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come when you go into your next checkup with your doctor and he says, "Oh my goodness, nurse, get in here." He's going to say, "You've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." And so let's get you started. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com and save 15% off using code Robert when you check out. There's a lot of good stuff there, more than just the greens, and I encourage you to check it out. And thanks to our friends at Field of Greens for supporting our work here. All right. And now, my friends, let's get right to it because we've got some filings, and you know how we love filings here. Special counsel Jack Smith wants Donald Trump gagged, and he wants this done immediately. He doesn't even want argument about it. He says, "Judge, we've already made our case. You don't even need to hear from them. Just go ahead and enter this order so that we can get this done. We've got all of this discovery that we're ready to just drop off at Trump's house. And so if you grant this without Trump's input at all, without even having a hearing on this, everybody's going to be happy. And Trump's so stupid that he doesn't even know that what we want is best for him." And so the judge said, "All right, hold on a minute. You guys need to meet and confer before I just start entering this stuff on my own. Give me a couple dates." And so they did. The government and Trump's people got together and came up with dates for the next meeting where they're going to argue about this gag order. So we'll look at that first. Here is the notice. 2-page filing coming out August 8th, United States of America versus Donald Trump. And this is a jointly signed notice. You see Trump's lawyers are signing down here. John Lauro, we've heard a lot from him here on this channel, along with the special counsel's office, Thomas Wyndham and Molly Gaston. So they jointly submit this filing. They say, "Hey, Judge, on August 7th, you directed the parties to meet and confer and then respond to us and inform the court by a joint notice," which is what we've got here, "of 2, the judge wanted this specifically, of 2 date and times on or before August 11th when both parties, Trump's team and the special counsel, are available. The parties have conferred and hereby provide notice." They say the government is available at any time, August 9th, 10th, or 11th. So that's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're available. And the government, of course, is always available, especially in this case, because this is all they do. They really have nothing else to do. These prosecutors, I would imagine, this is their entire life. It's probably been their entire life for a long time. And they have, nothing really else important going on. So they're like, "No, we're available. I mean, when we're not working on this, we're trolling Trump's truth posts and, stuffing our face with junk food." Prosecutors have a lot of snacks around. That's why they look like that. The defense represents the following. President Trump will not appear, right? He doesn't need to be here at this hearing. However, he would like to have both his counsel, John Lauro and Todd Blanche, at the hearing. Both of them, he wants them to be there. As is his right, he's the defendant, right? He wants his attorneys to be there. So they say Todd Blanche is not available on Thursday, so that takes out the 10th. since he must appear for a court proceeding in the prosecution brought against Trump in Florida. Yeah, he can't be there on the 10th because he's got another Trump prosecution by this same special counsel in Florida. That's why he's unavailable. Mr. Lauro is available on Thursday with a preference for an afternoon setting. However, since we lost Friday as an option, which means that's gone for some reason, we would respectfully request a setting on Monday after 12 p.m. or Tuesday all day to allow for both Mr. Blanche and Mr. Lauro to be present. So they say Friday's gone. Don't know if they could get there on August 9th. Didn't really address that, which is tomorrow from the day that we're recording this, so it's short notice. The judge wanted everything done by the 11th, 2 times before the 11th, and they gave dates after the 11th. So they gave the following Monday and a Tuesday, which are obviously far after the 11th. So the court is just, what I'm guessing happened here is the prosecutor actually submitted the filing and they just copy and pasted basically this notice, right? Copy and pasted here. And they're just going to let the judge decide. So the judge could theoretically put it on a Thursday. I'm not sure why the judge couldn't put it on the tomorrow, to be honest, because they didn't explain why they're not available on Wednesday. So the judge could really set it on any of them other than Friday. And again, I don't know why Friday isn't an option. So, all right, this is how it works, right? We've got it back and forth. And the government, I think, is just slapping this in there. They're like, hey, judge, you can figure it out. This is what we're working with, okay? We're dealing with Trump's lawyers, and look how complicated this is. They're irritated that we're prosecuting him in Florida, so they're using that as an excuse. He's got 2 lawyers, you know. Literally. I mean, it's like a conflict because he's got 2 cases. All right, so that's the notice. Now, when they get to the hearing, if they get to the hearing, if the judge doesn't do something differently, this is what they're going to be arguing about, a protective order. And remember how this format goes when you're filing motions. The government went first, so they file the motion. The motion goes in first. Then Trump files a response, so that goes second. And then the government gets the final say. So if it's a sandwich, the government's the final one on top, right? Government goes first, something else in the middle, government's on top. This is their reply. And they've already asked for a protective order. They say Trump's a maniac. He's threatening everybody on Truth Social. He posted a bunch of stuff. John Lauro also hit a ton of the news stations on Sunday. And we said that was by design. Okay, that was strategy. A lot of people on the left were saying, Trump's a maniac. Look at him. He's like 13 truths in like 3 hours. Oh, what a psycho. We're going, hey, dum-dums, you're missing the whole show here. This is by design. He is exercising maximum extension of free speech. It's like a force field. You go in, you claim your territory. He's claiming free speech all over the place. Going on CNN claiming some. Going on Truth claiming some about Fannie and Tishy and Alvin and all of these prosecutors with his ads, right? He's gobbling it all up. So the government said, we want a protective order, and he shouldn't be able to do basically anything. Talk about any witnesses, talk about any evidence. And then Trump's people responded and they said, that's nuts. This isn't a classified documents case. The government's calling all this stuff sensitive information. What's so sensitive about this? This is the January 6th insurrection. Why can't we see all the evidence, quite frankly? I would like to see even the grand jury stuff, which we generally don't get access to, but I'd love to see it. Why not? It's a matter of public importance. Historic, as they keep saying. So why can't we see the historic internal mechanics? So this is the government now finally responding. They say, all right, Judge, I know you want us to have a hearing, but we're going to see, they're going to say there shouldn't even be oral arguments on this. In other words, they don't want Trump to even speak about a protective order which limits his ability to speak. Do you see how psycho we are in this current environment? They want, the judge wants a gag order issued, a protective order issued, without even affording Trump the opportunity to speak. He should be gagged from arguing the gag order. We'll get there. They say this is the government bureaucrats for Biden and his prosecutors who are prosecuting Trump. Let's not forget that. Biden, Pelosi, the Democrats, they've all been choreographing this for years. So Jack Smith writes, the central purpose of criminal discovery is to provide Trump with materials necessary to prepare for trial. To facilitate the efficient production of discovery to the defense, the government proposed what they say is a reasonable protective order consistent with current practice in D.C., which nobody really cares about. I mean, obviously D.C. is where all the J6 cases are happening. Trump instead proposed an order designed to allow him to try this case in the media rather than in the courtroom, which they would absolutely hate. They know that they've got this rigged jurisdiction. And Trump is effective in the media. He's not going to have the same tools in the courtroom. So here's their big justification for why Trump should be silent. To safeguard witness privacy and the integrity of these proceedings, the court should enter the government's proposed protective order. Just enter it, right? Don't wait for hearings, just do it. And these are their justifications. And by the way, I'm all for witness privacy. Okay, protect their privacy, protect their identities, protect their personally identifiable information and all of that. I don't want anybody threatened or intimidated or tampered with at all, including the defense witnesses. I don't want prosecutors like Jay Bratt to put pressure on Mr. Woodward, who's representing Walt Nauta, saying that if your client doesn't work with us, you might not become that superior court judge you want to be. So we want that across the board. I wish the DOJ complied with that. But we also want access. We want transparency. So background, the government filed its motion for a protective order on Friday. They were flipped out that Trump was posting truths, exercising his free speech. On Sunday, August 6th, defense counsel John Lauro, Trump's lawyer. Listen, they're so irritated. He appeared on 5 television programs. Oh my gosh. And he discussed the case in detail. That was, again, by design. Both sides. Trump was going hog wild on True Social, just like, ah! John Lauro's going all over the media, doing the same thing. Beautiful. Tag team the whole thing. Talking about everything. Publicly commenting on topics, including the parties' disagreements over this protective order. The defense's planned legal arguments, the defendant's actions and statements during the charged conspiracies, and the expected testimony of a prospective witness. Oh man, they're furious. And Trump's people are trying to get it all out there before they get locked down. And then when they do get locked down, when the judge issues a protective order, I would imagine they're preparing some sort of an appeal to some entity to say that our free speech now in the middle of a campaign is being tampered down. We're being censored in the interest of this criminal prosecution from an illegitimate DOJ. For instance, regarding the protective order, defense counsel stated, this is what one of the lawyers said on CNN. John Lauro says this protective order that's being suggested by the Biden administration is an effort to keep from the press important non-sensitive information. And we will not agree to keeping information that's not sensitive from the press. Shout out to John. Good call. The press should care about this. The press and the American people in a campaign season have a right to know what the evidence is, provided that this evidence is not protected otherwise. Totally. So we're going to oppose it. But for whatever reason, these lawyers and the prosecution team, they want to keep that from you. Government prosecutors are whining, saying, a defense counsel then suggested that the government, by its proposed protective order, was trying to impinge on the freedom of the press. And prosecutors, they get irritated. They're like, no, we didn't do that. On ABC, John Lauro said, this is an attack on you and members of the press. I'm really surprised you haven't spoken out about it. What the Biden administration is trying to do is prevent the press from learning about exculpatory and helpful information. Evidence that the people have a right to know about. What the position of this prosecutor is non-sensitive, ordinary evidence should not be disclosed to the press. John says that's shocking. Not only do they want to violate Trump's First Amendment rights, they want to violate your rights to the freedom of the press. And I'm surprised the major networks aren't filing papers right alongside me on Monday. He suggested he could get ABC, the reporter, the lawyer, to engage in litigation over the protective order. Then John went on to NBC. He says, well, I'm shocked. And I can find you a lawyer to address this, but I'm shocked that all of the news media outlets aren't protesting what the government is trying to do. They hate that. They're like, what are you talking about? We're the good guys. They're trying to say we have discovery that's not sensitive, but we don't want the press to hear about it. And Mr. Trump, our team is saying, President Trump is saying, if there's evidence out there that the government has that's exculpatory or informative, then the press has a right to know. But the Biden administration doesn't want the press to know that. And I'm shocked that there aren't petitions being filed right now opposing what Biden is doing. Says we're all in favor of protecting sensitive and highly sensitive info, but it's unprecedented to have all information hidden in a criminal case, including, by the way, information that might even be exculpatory, that might exonerate Trump. The Biden wants to keep that from the American people. He went on Fox, said the same thing. He says the Biden administration wants the judge, now talking about the judge, to put in place an order that might prevent the press from obtaining exculpatory material. Trump has argued from the very beginning, as I have, that this is an attack. This indictment is an attack on First Amendment rights. Now that the Biden administration wants to deny all Americans the opportunity to learn about non-sensitive info in the middle of a political season. Lauro said, I'm convinced the Biden administration does not want the American people to see the truth, and they acted on it by filing this order, which is an effort to keep important information from the press. I'm shocked you haven't filed pleadings. The American people have a right to know, but Joe Biden doesn't want this to happen. Prosecutors furious. They're like, wait a minute. We can't get out there and make these statements, right? They can't go out there. Prosecutors, to be fair, right, they can't go on Fox. Merrick Garland's not going to go on Fox and talk about the case. They've got policies. No, we can't talk about it, blah, blah, blah. So they're very upset that Trump is using this tool and using his free speech. And they don't want that to happen anymore. So they say, okay, Judge, in television appearances, Trump's lawyers also made specific claims about what Trump allegedly said and did during the charged crimes. And he discussed the testimony of Mike Pence that is anticipated. He said Pence is going to be one of our best witnesses, baby. The vice president will be our best witness. We'll get to that in a later segment. On Sunday, the parties conferred twice by phone. Trump's lawyers also shared a red line of the government's order. And with the parties unable to reach an agreement on the order, Trump filed his proposed protective order on Monday. And we read through that briefly. Now, they say that Trump also made a bunch of posts. They're furious about it. They say Trump himself made a number of social media posts on Truth. For example, the day before his lawyer made comments about Pence, Trump called him Little Mike Pence, a man who was about to be ousted until he came over. He says, I never told a newly emboldened Mike Pence to put me above the Constitution or that Mike was, quote, too honest. He's delusional. Now he wants to show he's a tough guy. Flagging that for the judge. And so they say, Your Honor, Trump's order, if you grant Trump's order, it would lead to the public dissemination of discovery material. Okay, who cares? That's great news. Hey, by the way, all of this evidence, all of this discovery material, you say is going to incriminate the most serious insurrectionist, the most serious threat to American democracy since the Civil War. So what are you so freaked out about it? Maybe because it's garbage, which is why it explains why you never charged him with seditious conspiracy. Indeed, they say that is Trump's stated goal. Trump seeks to use the discovery material to leak this case in the media, better than your corrupt courts. It is an election season. One of the biggest issues in the country is about the weaponization of the DOJ to prosecute political enemies. Other countries' leaders are commenting about it. Like, what's going on over there? But that is contrary to the purpose of criminal discovery. Okay, so they're going to hew back to the rules, which is to afford defendants the ability to prepare for and mount a defense in court, not to wage a media campaign. Here's the judge, this is just like any other criminal case. They say the court should instead enter the government's proposed order. Don't even want to talk about it. The government's proposed order, applicable to all discovery, all of it, produced by the government, is very consistent with other criminal cases in this district, all in the corrupt DC district. They reference a bunch of cases. And look, they've got Bannon's case. We also shut him up, so he couldn't talk about it on his podcast. So Trump should also be shut up. But I'll tell you this, he's not running for president. Neither is Peary. Neither is Edwards. Trump's principal objection, they say, as Trump's lawyers stated publicly and in conference with us, the prosecutors, is that it would not permit Trump or his counsel to publicly disseminate, publicize various materials that they get from discovery. But they say there is no right to publicly release discovery material because the discovery process is designed to ensure a fair process before the court, not to provide them with an opportunity to talk about this in the court of public opinion, which is true, right? This is all true. The court established rules for the courts. They're not necessarily concerned, I mean, to be perfectly fair, with a public election. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be separate. And so they're just going to take that right back. Now, this is why this is a problem, because the judge can say in her opinion that I agree that this is improper. And she can say, this is how it works within my equal power, my governance, my jurisdiction, which is the judicial branch. But Trump is running to control the executive branch, a separate but co-equal branch. And at this moment in time, many polls show him in favor to win that. So a separate co-equal branch of government, if he runs the whole thing, we're going to run directly into this constitutional crisis that we've been concerned about. And you can see it in slow motion evolving right now. So they're going to try to limit him because of criminal courts while crapping all over, to excuse my language, his rights to free speech and his right to campaign openly and appropriately as a candidate. Defense counsel stated Trump's goal to publicly disseminate and discuss this material is contrary to the general principle against pretrial publicity. However, we are not in a general state of affairs. The defendant, they say, Trump's lawyers contend that strict scrutiny should apply. They say that's the wrong standard. They also say it's inconsistent with this district's local rule and the conduct of the attorneys in criminal cases. The court should not enter a protective order that permits such harmful extrajudicial publicity. They're going to try to shut this whole thing up and watch the judge grant it. As an initial matter, the court can and should exercise its discretion with respect to this protective order to prevent dissemination of the material that could prejudice the jury. What jury? Your DC jury with 92% Democrats? The district's rules prohibit Trump's lawyer from doing precisely what he has stated he intends to do if he is permitted, which is to publicize the details of this case, included the testimony of anticipated witnesses. They go right back to their local rules. They say, according to the rules, it's the duty of attorneys in criminal cases not to publicly disseminate information or opinion about the existence of any statement by the accused, testimony of prospective witnesses. These statements might risk tainting the jury pool with inadmissible evidence, or it could harm the integrity of the proceedings. What integrity? The court, they say, should not grant a protective order that would allow Trump to disseminate evidence like snippets of interview recordings, no matter how short, misleading, or unlikely to be admissible they are. Such conduct has the potential to unnecessarily inflame public opinion, short of all the relevant facts. Well, they might just tell you a little bit about what's problematic, and they might not tell you the whole story, and they could intimidate witnesses, and they could pollute the jury pool and degrade the integrity of the proceedings if we know what they're doing. The goal of Trump's proposed order is antithetical to the interests of justice, which nobody believes for a second is going on here, which is why people support the tactic. It's a separate branch of government. It's basically a separation of powers issue. If the entire, entity is corrupted, Trump is running to regain control of the executive branch. In addition to the general principle that the court should enter a protective order, the government sets forth other deficiencies in Trump's proposed order. In paragraph 1, Trump proposes replacing this language with this language. They say the problem is that would allow Trump to obtain sensitive information and publicize those information about trial subpoenas. The government's proposal would prevent that. They say that the defense might interpret this portion to say that they might be able to talk about other people who should be protected against being talked about. In a meet and confer call, Trump's lawyers stated that it's their intention to say that apparently any volunteer, interns, anybody could get access to the discovery. They say that's too broad. Trump's lawyers want to remove the definition of sensitive materials. So these are not classified documents or anything. This is just a January 6th case. But they've labeled everything sensitive materials. This includes discovery transcripts, audio recordings, witness interviews conducted outside the grand jury process. He says, I want to publish that, but they say, nope, the court should reject that stuff. They also want to remove redactions requirements. They oppose that. And some labeling provisions. In conclusion, the government says the government, Your Honor, has proposed a standard, reasonable order that will streamline the flow of the discovery. Trump has proposed an unreasonable order to facilitate this. In his plan to litigate this case in the media, which we'll see if he continues to do that, to the detriment of litigating this case in the courtroom, they say normal order should prevail. And listen to this. No oral argument is necessary. We don't even want Trump to be heard on this. The court should enter the government's proposed protective order. Don't even let Trump speak. Just do it. Gag him and make him gagged from arguing the gag. Signed by Thomas Wyndham and Molly Gaston, so-called prosecutors fighting for justice in America, saying that Trump needs to have his voice removed lest they be exposed for their corrupt hack prosecution right in the middle of an election season. They could have brought this years ago, and we wouldn't have had that election season argument. But they want to do this under dark of night. They want to do this undercover because that's how they operate. They're bullies and cheaters. They censor and they silence. And they're going to run into a big problem here because if they try to shut Trump up, they have an enforceability problem. What happens if he doesn't comply with that order? What's the judge going to do then? Of course, we're going to continue to follow, my friends. Thank you for subscribing wherever you're watching this as we continue to cover. All right, now, let's take a look at this filing, this case, because this is another doozy. Donald Trump's counterclaim is dismissed. This comes from Judge Kaplan. You may remember him from the E. Jean Carroll trial. E. Jean Carroll sued Donald Trump, and she lost the big one, the big charge. We talked about this in depth here. You remember this verdict form. She alleged that Trump did the old hibbity-dibbity in that dressing room at Bergdorf's, but the jury didn't believe her because she's weird and probably a liar, at least as to that charge. Here's what they said. As to count 1, did Trump do the R on Miss Carroll? Answer, no. Jurors said no. No R. Total exoneration. Incredible. Did Miss Trump abuse Miss Carroll? They said yes on that one. That's the old DJ diddle. And so we have a little bit of a conflict here. That's strange. E. Jean Carroll said that Trump did the hibbity-dibbity, but they said he only did the DJ diddle. So is she a liar or is she not a liar? Because on the first count, she's a liar. So after this verdict was handed down, E. Jean Carroll and her lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, no relation to the judge, they went out on the media and they were saying all sorts of stuff. And one thing that E. Jean Carroll said was that Trump did do the hibbity on her. That's the R word. And we say, no, that's not true. He was exonerated on that charge. And so Trump filed a counterclaim. Trump sued E. Jean Carroll back and said, hold on a minute here. If you're saying that I defamed you and that I did this thing and I didn't do the thing and you're saying I did, then you're defaming me. The old switcheroo. And so that sounded like a pretty good claim, but the judge has reviewed it in a 24-page filing issued in the case of E. Jean Carroll against Donald Trump. Here's the order. Granting E. Jean Carroll's motion to dismiss Trump's counterclaim and defenses. So, Trump countersues. E. Jean Carroll files a motion to dismiss the counter lawsuit. She wins. And there's Alina Abba doing excellent legal work as usual. The judge writes, all right, this is Judge Kaplan. And remember from Judge Kaplan, he absolutely hates Trump. We listened to him this whole trial. Twist this into some sort of perverted outcome. But he responds. He says, all right, well, this is a defamation case against Donald Trump brought by E. Jean for certain statements that Trump made in 2019 while he was president. E. Jean said that he did the hibbity in the mid-90s. In a second case, she sued him for defamation under the Adult Survivors Act, which allowed an extension under the statute of limitations to prosecute Trump. This is also known as the Prosecute Trump law that they basically passed so that she could bring this claim. Carroll was tried in this court. Mrs. Carroll testified that Trump assaulted her in a dressing room in what most likely was spring 1996, among other things, doing the hibbity with his, doing the DJ diddles. Sorry, I'm forgetting my, alternative phrasings. The DJ diddle with his fingers. And she said that he also did the hibbity with his other thing. The essence of her account was corroborated by 2 outcry witnesses in whom she had confided shortly and 6 other fact witnesses. And all these people were like bizarre witnesses who knew nothing. Mr. Trump relied exclusively on trying to discredit Miss Carroll. He did not testify. He did not attend. He did not present any evidence. The jury's unanimous verdict was almost entirely in favor of Miss Carroll. It found that Trump did abuse her, which is defined as contact by forcible compulsion, and it's a felony punishable by imprisonment, not in this case, it wasn't charged as a crime at all, and registration as an offender. But this is not the relevant law here. He was never charged with a crime. This was a civil case. It determined also, so why is he bringing that up here? It determined also that Mr. Trump defamed Miss Carroll in 2022. It awarded Carroll $2 million in damages for her battery claim and $2.9 billion for the defamation claim. And remember how hard we were laughing about this? The jury gave her $3 million for saying something that is untrue about her, but only gave her $2 million for the actual DJ diddles. So she got actually, the lie or whatever was worth more damage than the actual DJing. And I go, what the? All right, so it's just bizarre. So the only issue on which the jury did not find, this is the judge writing, in Miss Carroll's favor was whether she proved that Trump did the hibbity within the narrow technical meaning of the term of New York law. The jury was instructed that it could find that Trump hibbitied her if he forcibly penetrated her with his member. It could not find that he hibbitied her if it determined that Trump forcibly penetrated with his fingers, which is commonly considered, the judge says, the hibbity in other contexts. Because the New York law definition is limited to the member. As the court explained in a recent decision, denying Mr. Trump's motion for a new trial was based on the verdict as a whole. The jury's finding that Trump abused her implicitly determined that he forcibly penetrated her digitally. In other words, he says Mr. Trump did in fact hibbity her, as the term is commonly used and understood outside the context of New York law. So he's just making it up. You know, well, New York law doesn't say it. New York law says it has to have the actual member in there with your member down there. But it's commonly used and understood outside. So the day after the jury's verdict, Miss Carroll and her counsel gave interviews with the media where they discussed the trial and Miss Carroll's reaction to the verdict. In the answer, Mr. Trump asserted for the first time a defamation counterclaim. He said that Miss Carroll, in an interview with CNN, disregarded the jury's findings that Trump did not hibbity her, stating that when she heard the jury's response was no to the question, she responded, "Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did." They said, "Hey, E. Jean, what did you think when the jury came back and said you're a liar and Trump is not responsible for the hibbity?" She said, "Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did." And stated at the conclusion of the trial, "Trump did it, and you know it." She said to Mr. Trump's counsel, "Mr. Trump did it, and you know it." So the matter is now before the court. Ms. Carroll filed a motion to dismiss Trump's counterclaim. And the judge is laying out some facts for us. He gives us some different definitions under New York penal law. The court instructed the jury according to the jury rules, and they're rehashing the jury rules. The instructions and the jury instructions made clear if the jury found that Trump used his fingers but not his member, then they have to say no. But digitally then answers yes on the abuse question. Right? We've got all of that. They're totally different. Miss Carroll's statements after the verdict. Here's the exchange. On May 10th, the day after the jury's verdict, Miss Carroll and her lawyer showed up on CNN. During the interview, Miss Carroll made the following statements. Reporter says to E. Jean, What about when that first finding was found? This jury found that Mr. Trump did not hibbity you. What about that moment? E. Jean says, "Can you explain the legal?" And the reporter says, "Sure, yeah, I want you to explain the legal, but I just wonder, E. Jean, what went through your head? Like, I don't want to hear the legal answer. What went through your head when you heard that?" "Well, I just immediately say in my own head, 'Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did. See, that's my response.'" There in the courtroom was an encounter and an exchange between you and the president's lawyer, Joe Tacopina. He came up, you shook hands, I believe. What did he say? E. Jean said, "Well, Joe Tacopina is very likable. He's sort of like an 18th century strutting peacock," whatever that means. "And people like him. So when he sticks out his hand, first he congratulated Robbie, and then he congratulated people on the team. And as I put my hand forward, I said, 'He did it, and you know it.' Then we shook hands. And I passed on." So Trump alleges that she made falsehoods and defamatory statements by saying that. "Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did." Saying, "No, they didn't. The jury found I didn't." He contends that she made those statements with reckless disregard for their truth and falsity. And so the judge sets the legal standard, establishes some rules, and says Miss Carroll argues that there's no claim. And she says that Trump has failed to legally state a sufficient claim because her statements were at least substantially true. Close enough. Because Mr. Trump has not adequately pled actual malice, that she didn't say it maliciously. And so, in view of the following analysis, there is no need to address the sufficiency of Trump's actual malice allegations. The judge continues, says Trump's claim is insufficient It establishes against him the substantial truth of Miss Carroll's accusations. And he uses the word "are" in quotes. It goes from without quotes to with quotes. In any case, the finding, so they go through, they're arguing Trump's points. It says, as noted above and in a prior decision, the issue of whether Trump hibbited Miss Carroll within the meaning of the law was in this case for one and only one reason. In any case, the judge writes, Miss Carroll's statements were substantially true, so it's good enough. The digital finger is a digital hibbity, so you can hibbity somebody with your DJ diddles, all right? According to this judge. He says it's conclusive with respect to this case, and as a result, the statements are, quote, substantially true. The finding that Trump digitally hibbitied her is conclusive because it's necessary to support the judgment that was rendered in this case. It's the only remaining conclusion, and it's the only truth. Mr. Trump digitally hibbitied Miss Carroll. And so it's substantially true, and therefore, Trump's claims are dismissed. Let's fast forward to the conclusion. They're fast forwarding through all of Trump's defenses, saying none of them applied. For the foregoing reasons, Miss Carroll's motion to dismiss Trump's counterclaim for defamation is granted. Her motion to strike his affirmative defenses is granted. They're all denied, and so ordered. Trump's counterclaim predictably dismissed by Judge Lewis Kaplan in the E. Jean Carroll case. So as we see, the double standards of justice continue to exist. Trump says one thing that they say is defamatory. He gets sued for $5 million. She goes out, says something that is untrue under New York law. The judge writes a new opinion, twists himself into a pretzel to make it fit the verdict that he wants, the outcome that he would like to see, and dismisses Trump's counterclaim as well. That's New York City for you, man. We'll continue to cover. All right, now, let's take a look at what is happening here with Nancy Pelosi. As indictments continue to mount against Donald Trump, we are looking into who is behind the strategy that unloaded all of this upon America. Nancy Pelosi, now emerging as a front runner. Very interesting article came out showing her in this dark, demonic portrait mode, explaining that she was operating behind the scenes to create the Trump indictment, not impeachment. Remember, Nancy Pelosi was the former Speaker of the House. She was responsible, as the Speaker, for leading the Democrats when they were in charge. They did impeach Donald Trump twice. That's within her jurisdiction. Something that is not within her jurisdiction is criminal law. That's done by the executive branch. So what the heck is Nancy Pelosi playing an essential role for in a historic indictment? We've seen for a long time more evidence mounting. Joe Biden told Merrick Garland to go and prosecute Trump. Stop sitting on the fence and being a weenie about it. Special counsel Jack Smith is not an independent counsel. He reports to Merrick Garland. Even the media confirms that. So one after another, we see FBI weaponized against Trump, executive branch weaponized against Trump, the legislative branch weaponized against Trump, as these people all sit around and tell us that this was not a political attack. The story tells differently. They say if you were to drop a list of the people most responsible for the latest indictment of Trump, okay, you'd have Trump, you'd have prosecutors, Republicans in Congress have a role. But you can't tell the story of Trump's historic indictment without Pelosi. Pelosi, then Speaker of the House, insisted on a congressional inquiry following January 6th. She created the committee that is illegally constituted under House rules, should have had 13 members on it, only had 9, should have had 5 Republicans, only had 2, should have had input on the Republicans who were appointed to the committee, didn't. They just threw on Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. And it was the work of the select committee that finally appears to have spurred a reluctant Justice Department into action. So Pelosi nudged the committee, which nudged the Justice Department, if you believe that. I don't think they're reluctant at all. They've got two of them going, setting in motion a more intense phase of criminal scrutiny. The resulting indictment closely tracks with the committee's work and the evidence presented by the committee. So she's acting as like a prosecutor, exploiting the corrupt operation of Congress. Pelosi told the Intelligencer, New York Mag, says, "I knew on January 6th Trump had committed a crime." The author says, "I wondered what was going through her head as someone who played an essential role in bringing about the most important criminal prosecution in the history of our country." What a psychopath thing to say. Your political opponents are bringing about the most important criminal prosecutions in the history of our country, which just happens to be your political opponent. And I was curious when it had occurred to her that Trump was actually a criminal. She was one of Trump's number one opponents. She went toe-to-toe with him, is what this journalist says. The rioters ransacked her office when she was making her film documentary with her daughter, saying, "I've been waiting for this." Pelosi impeached him again. She was also colluding with General Milley, talking about the 25th Amendment, telling him to call China into things. To this day, Pelosi gets under Trump's skin. But long before January 6th itself, Pelosi had been preparing for Trump to try to disrupt the transfer of power. I'm sure she was preparing. I'm sure she was. During the election, I thought he's going to try to pull a stunt, and we have to try to have as many states in the Democratic column as possible. She told me, revealing some of her backroom deals. Said that the House would have to move. Look at this. She told me, contemplating the possibility that Biden's victory might not be certified and that the House would have to move to an obscure procedure in which each state's congressional delegation would cast a single vote to determine the next president. Oh my gosh. Did somebody tell the FBI about this? You're telling me that Nancy Pelosi was doing contingency planning on an election so that if her guy wasn't a clear winner, that they would do something differently? Oh my gosh. This is crazy. It's almost like what the alternative electors were doing with Mike Pence. Everybody was preparing contingencies. Now, if she were a Republican, she might be being raided and investigated by the FBI for doing this. She's contemplating the possibility of a different process. Trump promptly proceeded to validate that concern. Maybe. She was responsible, and her secretary, her sergeant at arms for security there. She says, as we got closer to January 6th, I knew he was cooking up all these things. But what was he going to do about it? It was clear he knew he did not win the election. I never saw that. It was clear he had to disrupt. When we saw what he did on January 6th, I knew it was a crime, Pelosi said. What can be proven in court, I don't know, but I know he committed a crime that day. Now, after Biden got inaugurated, she organized what they call here, was a total joke, a bipartisan 9/11 commission type hearing. Yeah, and they passed H.R. 503, which said 13 members, 5 Republicans, who are appointed in consultation with the minority, which were the Republicans at the time. They didn't get 5 Republicans that they could agree upon. So Pelosi said, to hell with you in the minority. And we're just going to appoint 2 Republicans that we like, Liz Cheney and Kinzinger. It wasn't bipartisan at all. In fact, it was in violation of their own House rules. We yielded on every point, Pelosi recalled, of the negotiation with her Republicans. We gave them an equal number of commission members, which we always have done. We did it because it was so awful for our country. It never happened. She says it turned out what was a historic miscalculation. Mitch McConnell blocked it in the Senate. Pelosi took it back to the House. Pelosi then shifted gears. So she created a select committee in the House. Pelosi quickly decided negotiations aren't going anywhere. She said Kevin McCarthy wanted to appoint members who would, quote, totally undermine the committee. You mean what? What do you mean? Like have an alternative opinion? You mean Jim Jordan would ask a difficult question? So Pelosi just said to hell with them. Okay, she recalled. That's really nice. So you get consultation as who to serve. I've consulted with you and I've said no. That's the power of the speaker. So she just fired all of them. She then assembled a group of Democratic people, including Republican Vice Chair Liz Cheney, 6 other Democrats, and Adam Kinzinger. And she called it a bipartisan committee. Did not take long for observers to conclude McCarthy monumentally misplayed his hand. They were not riveting. Everybody thought that they were a joke. So then all of that, which Pelosi created, she worked to ensure that members would, it's almost like she created a little bit of a grand jury. She said the quality of the membership was one of the best presentations in the history of our country. It was boring. It was scripted. They were all reading from teleprompters, and it didn't have even any adversarial proceedings. And in fact, they put on a bunch of liars too. Clavicle Girl comes to mind, who said Trump was, I think, ripping the Secret Service clavicle apart as he was trying to commandeer the van. Meanwhile, there were questions about what the Justice Department was going to do to address the criminal culpability here. The DOJ was not pursuing those same threads. I asked Pelosi whether she had tried to speak with Merrick Garland or Biden or anyone in the White House. No, she said, telling me she did not think it was appropriate for her to try to influence the department behind closed doors, I'm sure. I did want them to pay attention. I hope that we got their attention. That's why the presentation had to be the way it was, which was totally fake. We couldn't have people like the Republicans who would be disruptive. Too much was at stake. They had to fake this whole story. There was palpable anxiety among House Democrats when the DOJ wasn't making progress, when they weren't investigating Trump directly. The Post published an 8,000-word essay. It said it took more than a year for them to get some steam on this, and now Trump has been indicted. She says, at the end of the day, we have to see what happens. If he were to be president, it would be a criminal enterprise in the White House. So this woman has been spearheading the removal of Donald Trump for a long time. Here she is on with CNN talking about some of this, so you can hear it right from her.
So you have a singular experience of January 6th. As you read the indictment, what was your reaction and what jumped out to you?
It's heartbreaking for our country to have a president of the United States.
Heartbreaking.
With this list of charges against him. And I just want to commend
you guys all created.
The January 6th committee, the House committee, bipartisan committee.
It wasn't bipartisan.
Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney and all the members of the committee and the staff for the work that they did. They laid a foundation of facts, about facts and the law, and made a criminal referral to the Justice Department.
They're not a grand jury.
That was the end of December. That was in December of the end of last year, 2022. And we didn't know what we couldn't know. It wasn't our role to know what the Justice Department would do, if anything. So when it became clear that there would be criminal charges made, it's interesting to see how similar they are to some of the charges recommended by the January 6th
It is interesting,
committee.
isn't
And
it?
I commend again the committee.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of them, their courage, their bravery, and the courage really of all of those who are making the case now.
I'm watching
of course,
her eyes.
The former
What's going on
president
there?
is
She reading?
Innocent until proven guilty. No one is above the law. And the assault that they are making on the rule of law in our country is really a sad thing. I'm sure it would bring tears to the eyes of our founders.
I'm sure.
They
would have a lot of
the House,
problems.
your successor, Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy, he responded to the latest indictment by posting on the social media site formerly known as Twitter, quote, House Republicans will continue to uncover the truth about Biden Incorporated and the true two-tiered system of justice, unquote. He went on from there. What's your response to Speaker McCarthy trying to refocus this to Hunter Biden and President Biden?
What I would say is, and to remind the American people, that on the night when it was very clear to the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate that there was an incitement instigated by the President of the United States on the Capitol, on the Congress, more importantly, on the Constitution of the United States. They saw the danger that we were in. They saw the lack of response from the president for not sending the National Guard, because we pleaded for him,
Stephen's son said that.
And Chuck Schumer and I kept pleading with him to
71
also
minutes.
to call off his troops, but to send in the National Guard. They saw that. They saw the danger. They made statements about it that recognized the involvement of President Trump. And then so many of them, the majority of them in the House, voted to reject the peaceful transfer of government, accepting the numbers that the vote of the American people, as demonstrated by the Electoral College vote. It was heartbreaking to
total scam.
All the tragedy of that night, and then to see them say, "Okay, we're not supporting the peaceful transfer of power in our country."
You can just see how they're almost setting up the dominoes. It's like, well, we know you were upset about the election, but then the riot happened, so now you shouldn't be upset about the election anymore. Wait a minute. How does that make sense? Just because there was a short riot that lasted like 4 hours means we should just forget about the election? The riot means that everything that we saw happen didn't happen just because of that thing that happened for a couple hours? No.
That means more to me than any of this nonsense that he's engaged in now.
We've also seen a similar
the
response
Biden
from
family.
many of the Republican presidential hopefuls. I want you to take a listen to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talking to Fox.
One of the reasons I'm running for President, Harris, is to reconstitutionalize the federal government and these agencies that have become weaponized, the FBI, the DOJ, against political opponents. A D.C. jury would indict a ham sandwich and convict a ham sandwich if it was a Republican ham sandwich.
That's true.
This is largely the response from Republicans in the House and Republican presidential candidates, with the exception of Chris Christie, Asa Hutchinson, and Will Hurd, attacking the Justice Department.
Wow.
Instead of talking about the allegations made in the indictment. Well, what's your response?
Well, you know what, Jake? Every time we want to talk about the Biden crime family, you people only want to talk about Trump. So when it's Trump indictment and Republicans talk about Biden, that's totally fair, because every time a Biden problem pops up, you talk about Trump.
It's not my response. I'm not responding to them. I'm speaking, as I always have, with or without them. The rule of law is central to a democracy. The fact that the former president was always attacking the rule of law in our country, and now these guys are parroting that. Shame on them. Shame on them. But again, let's not talk about them. Let's just talk about our Constitution, our country, our respect for the rule of law. And by the way, while he was undermining the rule of law, he was also undermining a pillar of our democracy.
What?
Part of the First Amendment to the Constitution.
What is it?
Freedom of the press. So if he can diminish the role of the press in the mind of the people to know what the facts are.
What are you talking about?
And he can diminish the
by
role
calling the
of
press the enemy of the
law
people
in our country. We're on a path that is not a good one for our democracy. So let's not spend too much time on them. Let's spend time on where we need to be as a country.
Well, tell us.
Let's spend time on the greatness of Joe Biden's administration and what he's done for the country, creation of jobs, cutting unemployment in half, and the rest. And you know, you bring up a political question by talking about their political candidates for president.
What is Jake thinking right now? Look at him.
If you want to talk about that, let's talk about good things.
Who is this crazy woman on my show right now?
Let's give people hope. But there is a moment of tragedy in our country in these days, and actually days leading up to now, because there have been other indictments. The former person who held the office of President of the United States had no respect
she
for
just
the
went back to
office
Trump.
he held. No respect.
She just
for
went
the
back to
rule
Trump.
of
She
law.
said we should move on.
No respect.
She
for
just
free-
went full
of the
circle
free,
back to Trump.
Press in our country to tell the story. one
Didn't
side
you
or
just say,
another.
let's
I
talk
don't
about
always
Joe
like the way
Biden?
the press talks about me, but
She
that
just took
doesn't
us all the way
mean
back to Trump.
that should diminish the freedom of the press to speak. So we're at a place, we have an opportunity,
All right.
a real opportunity to save our country and to do it in a unifying way, to be respectful of people who may have voted for him, may have been, for whatever reason.
How much
that
wine
they
did they have in that green
and
room
that's their
back there?
vote, and that's their right. But they should not be dragged into the gutter with him in terms of his undermining the United States of America, our democracy, our rule of law, our Constitution.
Given
All right, so enough of that. All right, so she's sauced up or something. Let's just talk about Joe Biden. He's given us a ton of great jobs. He's a great president. But you know who's not a great president? Donald Trump. All right, you people, you just can't help yourselves, can you? They have nothing to talk about, so they just always default back to Trump. Now, speaking of some serious hystericism, I want to share this clip from Joe Brzezinski. He has this show on MSNBC where he hosts, I think his wife hosts the show and he is a sidekick or something. But absolute freak out moment from him. What if Trump wins? We're all going to die.
And what Baker says in the Wall Street Journal piece, Reverend Al, is if Republicans continue this line of thinking, if they continue their support for Donald Trump, they needn't fool themselves. A second Trump administration would destroy the Department of Justice, would destroy the FBI, would destroy the federal government's rule of law, would destroy judicial independence. It would destroy the third branch of America's government. It would rip to shreds Madisonian democracy. They need to understand what they're doing, and perhaps they do. I'm just trying to figure out what is so important about this former reality TV host that they're willing to literally throw away Madisonian democracy to defend him.
That is what really has troubled me, is that it's clear that you can have political debate, those of us consider on the left, those on the right. But when you see what is going on now, I think the New York Times has a story about it this morning, where you have the actual institutions of government that would be totally altered by the politics of today, particularly if Trump were to win. I mean, are these people really saying that's what they want to advocate? The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it and all of the institutional law pillars as we know it, because that's where they're going. They are undermining the very principles that the country was founded on.
No, weirdos. We are wanting a restoration of those principles. We actually would like justice in America. Just because we have a Justice Department doesn't mean we have justice in America. We're all huge fans of equal protection and due process of the law and presumption of innocence. We love not prosecuting our political opponents like partisan hacks. We're big fans of that. What has happened is these institutions have been corrupted and perverted by your people and your party. Exactly. Resulting in what we see today. So absolutely, the current form of the DOJ, no, we don't want that. FBI, no, not okay with that. Any government bureaucracies that are crapping all over our, I'm getting vulgar here today, our rights need to be held accountable. They need to be a part of the conversation about dramatic restoration, reform, replacement, removal, gone.
And that is democracy as opposed to autocracy. And I think that is one thing to be caught up in the heat of a campaign. Is another thing to say that I want to completely overhaul how we govern and what we stand for as a nation. And that is the line they have began to cross in the politics of some of those that are running in the Republican primary.
No. You guys are prosecuting your political opponents. We didn't cross that threshold. You started it. This is an institutional crisis for them. This is a legitimacy crisis. And this, I think, is only the first inning. We are just getting started. They don't even know the damage that they are bringing upon themselves. They're in this legitimacy doom loop downward spiral. Every time they want to bolster their legitimacy, they go and they do something like attacking their political opponents to bolster their credibility. But they don't realize, because they're so dumb, that when they attack their political opponents and they use these institutions that once had some legitimacy, they actually undermine their legitimacy. Everybody recognizes they are corrupt, but they keep doing it. They're going to try again for a fourth indictment. We're going to see how it works out for them. So they're destroying their own institutions. It's not us doing anything. We're just sitting here. We're just commenting on this scam show trial situation that's happening in this country. They're doing it, not us. All right. And so we've got one final segment here about Mike Pence. The star witness in the Trump trials might be none other than Mike Pence. He said he's willing to testify. Trump has called him delusional, and two Trump lawyers say, no, we want to hear from this guy. I mean, he wrote in his book, he's been talking about this situation for a long time. We never asked him at all to put the Constitution under Donald Trump or to steal the election or to do anything of the sort. And as soon as Mike Pence is sworn in under oath in a criminal trial in a court of law and we get to ask him questions and impeach him with his own prior inconsistent statements, then we're going to see the truth come out on display. But Pence has agreed to testify. He has said, yeah, no problem. If they subpoena me, I'll come in as a witness.
Mr. Vice President, if this case comes to trial, would you be a witness against the president?
People can be confident. We'll obey the law. We'll respond to the call of the law if it comes, and we'll just tell the truth. Look, I've been telling this story over the last 2 years, but I must tell you, over the last week, it seems that more and more Americans have been coming up to me and just expressing a word of appreciation for what, by God's grace, that we did that day.
Mike Pence, I'll testify. If he gets a subpoena to testify, obviously he is a pretty critical witness in this entire case. He was the guy who was evidently receiving the electoral votes from the various states. He got the alternate electors who would also be in his envelope, and he could say, well, I've got these two competing slates. I don't know what to do with it, so the House needs to go investigate and decide, and you guys make a decision and come back to me later and we figure it out once I don't have an ambiguity in the votes. And so he'll be there, and we've heard his statement waffle all over the place. At one point, he was saying that, it's kind of my opinion that I didn't have the power to do these things, and we're okay with that. But when he started to turn his phrase around a little bit and say that Donald Trump asked him to dump on the Constitution and to place Trump above the Constitution, that is not accurate. Okay, that is not what Trump had asked him to do. Trump certainly was asking him to do something that was novel, that maybe had not been done before, but it doesn't mean it was unconstitutional. In fact, we know that they, in Congress, passed the Electoral Count Act of 2022 to fix the holes that were already in the Electoral Count Act. So Trump has called Mike Pence delusional, and attacking him is what CNN calls it. We've seen a lot of the tweets calling him little Mike Pence and saying he's delusional and not a very good person. Says, I never told Pence to put me above the Constitution. He's delusional. He's running for a campaign now. He's just barely, I think, qualified for the debate. And he's drawing this lane of being a hard anti-Trumper. I'm just not going to, mince words anymore. Maybe he'll carve out something that will differentiate him from the other candidates. We'll see. But the lawyers would love to hear from him. Here was John Lauro, who is one of Trump's lawyers, explaining this when he was hitting the media.
What's your response?
Yeah, Mike Pence will be one of our best witnesses at trial. I read his book very carefully. And if he testifies consistent with his book, then President Trump will be acquitted for these reasons. Number one, Mr. Pence recognizes that John Eastman, who was giving legal advice, was a renowned legal scholar. Number two, Vice President Pence recognized that there were discrepancies and fraud in connection with the election. He wanted it to be debated on Capitol Hill. Mr. Trump wanted it to be debated in the state legislatures. But make no mistake about it, based on what Vice President Pence will say, the government will never be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump had corrupt or criminal intent. And that's what this case is about.
Mike Pence is.
So Mike Pence, his statements have been inconsistent, but at some points, I think he has articulated clearly what Trump was actually asking of him. And that articulation is not criminal. in our interpretation. So they would love to have Mike Pence. This is another one of Trump's lawyers called Jesse Binnall, who is going to be speaking about this as well. He could be a star witness for us, he says.
And I think there are some issues with what the prosecutors talk about Mike Pence saying. If you look at Mike Pence's words and what he's said time and time again, it actually supports Donald Trump. It's actually, I think Mike Pence, if this ever goes to trial, and I don't think it should make it to trial, I think it should be dismissed. But if it ever does make it to trial, Mike Pence is going to be a star witness for Donald Trump, because what he has basically said time and time again is they may have had disagreements over the best way to act, that there was a conversation that needed to happen. Donald Trump thought that conversation about the propriety of votes belonging in the state legislatures, all on advice of counsel, remember. Donald Trump is doing this all on advice of counsel, whereas Mike Pence thought that debate should happen in the halls of Congress. That's perfectly acceptable.
Let me unpack 3 points there.
Yeah, so that's fine. So it is a executive disagreement. Trump says, hey, this is my interpretation. I think I read the law this way. Pence says, I read the law this way. Trump says, well, I think you should do it this way. He says, well, I'm not going to do it that way. Okay, that's fine. Happens all the time. Happens in relationships all the time. We should have this for dinner. No, we should have this for dinner. Okay, we have a disagreement about it. You don't call the cops on your spouse. That's what they've done.
One, I think we can agree that you can't just ask a person who's in office to do anything, and it always meets the First Amendment. I couldn't very well say to a member of Congress, I'd like you to be a hitman for someone. That would go beyond the ideas of it, number one. So there are some
certainly you could solicit a crime. Okay, you could be charged with solicitation of a crime, like solicitation of a common one is prostitution, right? Solicitation of prostitution. Ask for something, ask for drugs, buy drugs off a federal agent or something like that. But that's criminal conduct.
Foundational issues with that. Number two, I do want to play for a moment what Vice President Mike Pence has had to say, because I really am stunned at the notion that there would be a thought that he might be a good witness on behalf of Donald Trump. Listen to what he had to say to kind of clarify the points. I'll play for you why I think he might not be in agreement with you. Listen to this.
The day before January 6th, if memory serves, they came back, his lawyers did, and said, we want you to reject votes outright. They were asking me to overturn the election. I had no right to overturn the election. What I want the American...
So we'll see about that case. So that is a statement, and then he's got other statements that are inconsistent with that statement. So we're going to be asking him, why is your words changing?
People to know is that President Trump was wrong then and he's wrong now. That I had no right to overturn the election. I had no right to reject or return votes.
So I'm giving you the look like, Jesse, I'm giving you that look. Like, Jesse, that doesn't sound like a kind of whiz I'd put on my fan and say, hey, make me look good.
Well, so first of all, I think it's important what Vice President Pence said then, and that is what his lawyers came and talked to him about. And
what do you mean by that?
As Vice President said that the lawyers came and asked him to do that. Everything that President Trump did was under the advice of counsel.
So his lawyers asked Mike Pence to do the thing. Not Trump. We're going to see a lot more to this case. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mike Pence might be the star witness. This could be very curious because a long time the left has been saying he's the nail in the coffin. He's the final guy. He's going to incriminate Trump, and now he's running for president. So he'd love to see Trump be thrown in custody, but might be the star witness for the defense. I think the conversations with Mike Pence, anything that tends to show that this was an executive discretionary debate, is going to show that this is not criminal. And so if he's their star witness and he's the defense's star witness, this case might be even weaker than we thought. Of course, we are going to continue to cover this, my friends, as this prosecution continues to develop. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for sharing it with your friends and your family members. Thanks for inviting them to join us over for a lovely live stream. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. We've got Mike Pence as a star witness. We've got Joe Brzezinski and Nancy Pelosi. Good morning. Sunday morning. Here talking about her corrupt role in the prosecution of Donald Trump, which is not her role, by the way. Joe Biden's in on it. Merrick Garland's in on it. Nancy Pelosi's in on it. We can't wait to hear from Chuck Schumer. Trump filed a defamation counterclaim. Obviously, Judge Kaplan dismissed that one. And Jack Smith wants Trump gagged immediately. Doesn't even want oral arguments. Wants Trump gagged from arguing about the gag. That's where we're at. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say. Before we jump into your comments, one final reminder to join us over at robertgovea.com, where our dark mode is looking nice and fresh. And you can sign up for our daily newsletter. You can sign up to get access to the mind map. Everything we just covered is available on the mind map, located at robertgovea.com. If you want to read a little bit more, you can also click the reports section and get access to all of the latest reports, including this nice guest post, which came in from our friend, Mr. Woods, which talks about some firearms safety stuff. So shout out to Brian for writing and posting that article, sending that article over to us. robertgovea.com. Check it out, my friends. We are going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party, right after we say hello and thank you to our friends in the lovely, amazing chat. And today we are getting started with Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. Thank you, Dolphin. We have Dolphin Fan who's bringing in 5 new membos. Tornado Sunflower, Michael M., Danny L., Jerry Moore, and Jay Lieb in the house. Thank you very much, Dolphin, for bringing in 5 new membos, which means tomorrow morning we'll see you for our members only morning stream. Love our membos. Jameson says, what research have you done on Bivens cases? And recently, none. It's been a long time. But I'm sure Jameson, who's a lawyer, by the way, who sends me some case law sometimes, has done some. So what are you getting into over there, Jameson? We got this one from Fred. Says, Rob, you, my friend, are shadow banned on YouTube. Johnny. Well, ain't that the truth? That is for sure. Yeah, it's hard to find our channel, which is why we're so grateful that you share this, that you like this, that you sign up for our newsletter, forward the emails to your friends, all the stuff. They don't let us outside of our bubble. I can see it in the analytics. It's like nuts. And they do that intentionally. They talk about it. They say that we are disfavored. They amplify authoritative sources. So we're a news channel, obviously, but we are not an authoritative news channel. So they promote the authoritative channels, which are the CNNs and the, if you search for news, it's all going to be the 1-minute garbage clips from some garbage media company. But what can you do? We had that one. Thanks, Fred. This one came in from Don't Be Hatin'. Says, any truth to this? Are you following any Dominion lawsuits out there? No, actually, we have not been covering any of those. This one from Kid Rock Official says, absent from the news, Dominion lost their lawsuits against Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Interesting. No, I don't know anything about it. I can't confirm or deny it or what that means. Sometimes lost might mean a lot of things. Lost might mean they settled it. They could have voluntarily dismissed it. Did they go to trial or something? Did they lose at trial? I don't think I've seen that in the news. So I don't know if it was a voluntary dismissal or what the deal is. But interesting. Very good to see. Interesting news. We got this one from A Bad Poet. Says, Pence been on all the shows lately talking Trump. Yeah, I think he's carving that little niche out for himself. So that, well, he needed to get some more donos so he could qualify for the campaign, for the debates, which I think he just qualified. I think he just inched in, just barely. Pretty funny. This one from Red Blooded American. Hey, bringing in 10 new membos. Super generous. Thank you, Red Blooded American. And so our member-only morning streams are a ton of fun. We're going to have 10 more people joining us. Angie W., Gloria B., Maria K., Becca G., John S., Danny M., T. Ree, Calbo D., Z3's in the house, along with Superman is here. Courtesy of Red Blooded American. All inviting 10 new people in. Thank you, Red Blooded American. And that means tomorrow our live stream is going to be a lot of fun. Members only in the morning. See you there. We've got Michael Allen Hughes. Said it's headed straight to the Supreme Court about free speech. Liberals need to know what the word ask means. Trump never directed or demanded anyone. Right, he's not ordering people or threatening people or, exploiting people or anything like that. He's asking in his role as the president, as somebody who runs the executive branch, and as somebody who is campaigning. Everything is within the rules. Everything's within bounds, except it's just Trump, so they hate him. And they allowed January 6th to happen, and they're blaming that. They're trying to connect everything. They're trying to turn what he did into something that it isn't. Thank you for the comment, Michael. This one from Gentifer over on Rumble. Thanks, Gentifer. Says, Rob, since Trump and other side Dems want a televised trial, do you think the judge would allow it, as this is unprecedented indictment anyways? Wouldn't it be so sweet to watch the deep state versus Trump? Yes, it would be incredible to watch it. I personally would love to see it televised. I would like to see the grand jury transcripts also released, even though that's not normally the process. I'd still like to see it. This is a matter of historic importance. I think that the prosecutors would not want you to see it. They're already trying to keep this stuff closed down. So I would imagine they would want this also closed down. I know Adam Schiff wants it open, but I can't imagine the prosecutors would. Trump, I think, would. It's a good question. We'll see. I think the judge is going to lock it down. They want to do this stuff under dark of night. Raymond Loera says, I'm pretty baked right now, and short-term memory loss might have set in. We'll see what we can do. We'll work through this together. Can you confirm that a January 6th committee was televised and allowed the public news media to learn about evidence outside the court system? So yes, I can confirm that there were several January 6th committee hearings that were televised. I think like 8 of them. They were very boring. We watched a couple of them here together and we're like, this is ridiculous. And yes, they were presenting all of the evidence outside of the courtroom. It was a bizarre proceeding. It was not adversarial. There were no adversarial questions. I mean, nobody was like challenging anybody. It was just a big presentation. It was like a mini series about why Trump is an insurrectionist. It was the dumbest thing ever. But yeah, it was televised. You probably missed it because they were so boring and nobody really talked about them. Thanks, Raymond. Hopefully you're having a beautiful time. Be safe, brother. Fred says, R. Kaplan and E. Jean Carroll were crucial in the ASA. I don't know what ASA stands for. Need an assist on that one, Fred. Assistant, US, like AUSA, assist like attorney's office, those types of things. What is ASA? I don't know. SD says, I'd like to know if Trump completed the purchase or did he just leave? If he left, then why even go into the store? It wasn't to see her. Yeah, that's true. Were there any receipts there? I don't think there were any receipts. There were no surveillance footage. There was no other witnesses there. The whole thing was made up. So I don't even think Trump was there, which means he couldn't purchase anything. Good to see you, SD. The whole trial was just a scam. Tommy Caraway became a supporter. Welcome aboard, Tommy. Glad to have you, my friend. And we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for our members-only stream. Gentifer's here. 100 million insider trader Pelosi needs to be locked up. Love the truth Trump put out about her calling her a demon. Well, there are some certainly demonic forces out there afoot. We are in the middle of a spiritual battle, no doubt about it. And these people are lying and twisting everything for their own dark purposes. We're not going to let that take over, though. The light shall prevail. Good to see you, Gentifer. We've got this one from Penny. Nurse Penny, to be clear, says Nurse Penny here, who's also on Rumble, by the way. Might be a good Rumble channel to check out if you're looking for some other stuff to watch when you're not watching this channel. Nurse Penny here says Nancy is either reading or has drunk nystagmus, causing jerking of the eyes. I think you're right about that, Penny. It was reading, it could have been nystagmus. Yeah, horizontal gaze nystagmus, that's something that we test for in DUIs. You're looking for a jerking of the eyes at some level of onset. So when your eyes are going to a certain direction like this, do they jerk back like windshield wipers? That's the analogy that we would use. You know when you get into a car and it's raining out, you turn your windshield wipers on? The windshield wipers, because it's wet, they'll go smoothly. And Nurse Penny can correct me if I'm wrong on this. They'll work smoothly. They just kind of move around. That's your eyes' smooth pursuit when you're following this, right? When it is not raining and you flip on your windshield wipers, you know how it's kind of jerky? It goes, right? That's what your eyes do when you're drunk. And when an officer pulls your eyes like this direction, about 45 degrees, and your head stays the same, your eyes will jerk back towards the center. And they're watching that. And Nancy Pelosi's eyes were nystagmusing out big time. And I thought she might have been reading. And then you're right, by the end of the segment, I was like, is she drunk? It's a good point. And I didn't think about the nystagmus being relative to drunk in the segment. But now that you mention it, I thought she was reading originally. Let's pull that up again. The reason I thought she was reading is because she talked about some dates and stuff. It's very curious now that you mentioned this, the nystagmus. I thought she was reading because she kind of has like this little speech here.
Have a president of the United States.
And then the nystagmus kicks in.
List of charges against him. And I just want to commend the January 6th committee, the House committee, bipartisan committee, Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney, and all the members of the committee.
And then we fast forward a little bit.
When it was very clear to the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives and in the United States Senate that there was an incitement instigated by the President of the United States on the Capitol, on the Congress, more importantly, on the Constitution of the United States. They saw the danger that we were in. They saw the lack of response from the President.
I don't know. Normal, reading, or drunk? I don't know. You'll have to make your own conclusion on that one. Normal, reading, or drunk? I don't know. Penny is here, either reading or drunk. Probably drunk. All right, who knows? Thanks, Penny. Very fun. We got Norman says, the only legitimate purpose of government is to protect your rights. Anything they do beyond that, they're just breaking the law. Great live stream. Thank you, Norman. Thanks for the dono, and thanks for being here. I agree. We should have a very limited, very small government. We don't need them to solve everything for all of us and wrap us up in bubble wrap everywhere we go. We're here to protect you. Oh, no thanks. Thanks, Norman. Wims says, I appreciate how much his true colors are going to show. I think talking about Pence over there. Yeah, because he'll be under oath and we'll be able to impeach him. And his inconsistent statements will come out on full display for all of us to see. You know, a lot of people can talk crap sorry about that word again, can talk garbage in the middle of a campaign, but it's not the campaign. This is a criminal court of law now. So he's going to be subpoenaed in there. He'll be under oath and they can cross-examine him. We'll see how that goes for him. Wims is here, says, I haven't trusted him since the plane thing during 2016 campaign season. What was the plane thing? I'm trying to remember that. I haven't trusted him since the plane thing. Was that the fly landing on his head or something? I remember they did the debate in front of the plane, but I wonder what that was about. Wims in the house. Yes, I'm talking about Pence. The fly? Was it the fly, Wims? Or was it... There was that debate I was wondering about. I see Wims typing away over on locals. We'll see. We got this one from Jameson, says, working on another email for you. Think you'll like it. Love that. We'll check that one out. We got one from Woodchip Bill. Woodchip Bill is saying that there's this link on Twitter that he likes. Loves the music on this one. So I got to be careful with music. So we'll play that in the after party. We'll play that in the after party, Woodchip Bill. So we'll save that one for the after party. Stick around. We've got another one from Michael Allen Hughes, says, why is Pence able to speak about the case? Well, because he's not Trump. Everybody else can talk about it, okay? He's not Trump. Trump is the one who's going to undermine justice. Everybody else can talk about it, and it doesn't undermine justice. See how that works? gag order also, I mean, it doesn't apply to the DOJ. They leak like a sieve. I mean, they leak everything to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Everything gets leaked. So what's the, why are they just handcuffing Trump and only Trump? Pence says, POTUS was campaigning in Pence's home state. Got a flat tire on the Trump plane, stayed in Indiana. Trump was stuck with his plane, so he flew his sons in. It was that day that 45 chose Pence as VP. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't remember that story. That was from Wims. Skeptical, indeed. All right, so we've got Trust 2 Kids over on Rumble. Says, all right, Rob, we OD'd on Pelosi today. I know, it was a lot. Sometimes, you know, we just have to get through it. We have to see what these people are doing. Can we please have an ice cream-free Wednesday? I'm lactose intolerant. Thanks. Yeah, we'll have to make it up. I mean, I try to balance it. Like, I try not to go 2 days in a row of Pelosi or 2 days in a row of Karine. I need a break too, man. I got to listen to it too. I mean, we're sitting here going through this together. I got to live with it, you know. Whew. And I got to listen to it to prepare it. Although a lot of the times I don't listen to it before it goes into the mind map. We listen to it together so that I can save myself 2 listens. Bonnie just turns the sound off. Another good solution too. Jameson says, Trump is faithfully executing the law. I got better than televised coming, baby. We're looking forward to that, Jameson. Thanks for sending that in. And I'll be looking forward to your emails. Here is what Zulu says. Telling Trump to shut his mouth is exactly what I would do to goad him into continuing to blabber about things that would help my prosecution, just saying. So Zulu, I think you're right about that, actually. I think you're dead right about this. I think that if you're a prosecutor, you're Trump, and you know that this judge is probably going to issue a protective order that's going to favor you. Yeah, you want Trump to do more damage to himself. Now, I think, you know, at some point we're going to run into a head on this. Like, the judge is going to say Trump can't talk about something. He's going to talk about it. And then the prosecutors are going to have to decide what to do. Like, the ball's going to be in their court. So then what are they going to do? Ask the judge to bring him into custody? And what's the judge going to do? Do it? I kind of hope they do it, actually. Let's see if they'll put their money where their mouth is here. They've been saying for years that he was a seditionist conspirator and that he was the leader of the insurrectionists. They've got Stuart Rhodes, who's going to prison for 18 years. We'll see what they do with the Proud Boys. So if they're going to put them in custody and they're so tough, why don't they lock Trump up too? Do it. See what happens. And we'll see how it works out for him. I mean, I don't know that it's going to work out well for him. So they're going to draw a red line in the sand and be real tough guys. And then Trump's going to come back out and probably cross that at some point because he's running for president, which is more important than their criminal prosecution. So when he crosses that line, the judge is going to have to make a decision. What's she going to do? We're going to be in a game of chicken here. And I hope Trump is not gonna veer off course on this. All right, you got to be nuts to think that Trump is not going to blink on this. He's already made that clear. So the prosecution, they can exercise the full strong arm of the federal government to go, I guess, arrest him and put him in custody. But good luck. I don't think that's going to work out so well for him. Anyways, it's a good comment, Zulu. Prosecutors are probably thrilled about this. I think that they are probably laughing. They're going, this is great. This couldn't be going better for us. But again, I think that they're idiots and they don't know what they're doing. It's all going to backfire. Ray K says, there's Zulu. Zulu's in the house. Good to see you, Ray. Jameson says, the easiest way to tell Pelosi is lying, she's speaking. It's a good idea. It's a very good heuristic. That's how I tell. And I think, honestly, though, Jameson, even when she's not speaking, she's also lying. It's just kind of emanating. Her energy, her aura is just a big fraud. All right. Penny says, look how slow her blink rate is. All right. Penny's got it nailed. She's hammered. She's hammered. Penny. We got Jackie Carrion says, Nancy lied on CNN. Said they are waiting for troops. Good to see you, Jackie. 4 months, man. That's a good time. We're almost halfway to a baby there. Let's keep going. Steel Stargazer says, we all need to stand and support Trump. Never back down. He's fighting for us. He's fighting for a lot. He's fighting for himself. He's fighting for us. He's fighting against a lot. He's fighting against a totally corrupt DOJ, which has been oppressing all of us with their censorship and their corrupt practices. Star Steel Gazer, good to see you. Jigum says, what would be a good GIF or meme to make for you? Hope your brother's birthday was nice. Oh, thank you, Gigam. Gigam in the house. So my brother's birthday, rest in peace to my brother Eric. Today is his birthday. He was born 8/8/88, and he's no longer with us, had a difficult time. So he is going to be celebrated today by our family. We're going out to dinner tonight after this show. So we'll be celebrating his memory tonight. And a good GIF or a meme for that? Gosh, a good question. A good GIF or meme. I'm going to have to, Jigam, that you're asking me to be creative right now. You're the creative one. All right, you've got the wrong person here for help with that one. So, Jigam, I'll defer that back over to you and the chat. I'm sure somebody will come up with a much better idea than I could. But Jigam, thanks for saying something. Thanks for saying something about my bro. And thanks for making a nice meme for us, as per usual. And Facts Matter, giving Wims a little grief here, says typing class fund. I think Wims I saw over there was saying, I was at a red light or something, but not texting and driving, you know. Where did you say, what did you say you were doing? She's busy. She's got work. She's multitasking here. Multitasking. We're just giving each other a little bit of grief. So shout out to Facts Matter. Shout out to Wims in the house. And Radice says, Rob has babies on the brain. I sure hope not. I don't know why they'd be on the brain. Sure hope not. That's what's going on over here from Radice. Rob has babies on the brain. And Facts Matter and Jigam all in the house. But all right, my friends, let's say hello to our friends on X before we jump over to our members only after party. YouTube friends, make sure you navigate, if you're a YouTube member, navigate over to the community tab section on the channel page, grab the Telegram link, and join us, because that is where we will be going here in a few short minutes. But first, let's say hello on the X. Who's joining us over there? Anybody in the house? 6 people! Woo! Things are spicy on the X. We got V in the house. Oh my gosh, and we have an unboxing to get to with V. I think, should we do that over on Locals? Let's see. We have an unboxing. V sent me a very beautiful gift. We've got a society can never be freer than how freely information flows within that society. Absolutely love that. Yeah. We need to know what is happening out there. The ASA was the 1-year law to sue Trump. The Adult Survivors Act. Got it. Yeah. Was the 1-year law to sue Trump. Kaplan and Carroll were deeply involved in getting that done, right? So that they could sue Trump. James says, wish me luck tonight. Got a meeting with the Navy where I found the agency that's in charge of cleaning up the waste are the ones who contaminated in the first place. And Nancy Pelosi's nephew is developing it for real estate. Amazing. Fred says, for days, you have not come up on my feed. I have to search for you. That's a new thing. YouTube is watching the watcher. Yeah, I can see it. I can see when our overall impressions go up and go down. And I can see it. I'm sorry you're not seeing us. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining our newsletter. Thank you for going to robertgovea.com, because they do. They censor us. They just limit our ability to speak. Henry says, Robert actually moves the needle when it comes to breaking down the law and cases and insights. One of the best influencers out there. Highly recommend. Thanks, Henry. What a nice comment. Well, I'm glad that you're here, Henry, and I appreciate you joining us. And I appreciate your support, because there's going to be a lot more of this stuff to get to. We've got a link from Robert Barnes, says the prejudiced Judge Chutkin, was born to foreigners and communist parents. Wow, very interesting take from Robert Barnes. TJ King says Trump's defense on the gag order should be, as a political figure, Trump suffered induced censorship of tweets. and he loves the First Amendment. And now the government wants to censor him again. Buffering says, love the breakdowns. Bad Poet says, makes the dry paper entertaining and understandable. We try to have a little bit of fun here. Normalcy says it's like 18th century Australia. Lots of railroads and kangaroos, especially in this court. Great comments on Twitter. X, sorry, Elon, don't ban me. You can follow along. Join us over there at Rob Govea ESQ. And we're still trying to upload our videos there, but we're having some upload issues. And so at some point, we want to be uploading our content on the X as well as the other platforms. But time will tell. It's still maturing. Still a little baby X, so it'll eventually mature. But okay, my friends, we are wrapping it up. Penny Whitbrot with one final comment over from Rumble before we wrap it up. Says, Rob, I'm most well known for my near-death experience. Your brother is in excellent hands. Google Penny Whitbrot, Shaman Oaks. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Well, thank you, Penny, for saying that. Yeah, I think he is in excellent hands. I feel at peace about it, and I appreciate your support on it. I miss him. I love him. I'm sorry he's not with us, but I'm also at peace with it. I also understand. I do believe that our journeys throughout this cosmic universe is eternal, and we will be reunited again. And so thanks very much, Penny. And I'm glad that you are still here and with us. Sounds like a very interesting experience that I'm actually fascinated in hearing about. I love that stuff. Okay, very cool. All right, and so thanks, Penny, for that. And thank you to our Rumble friends who are supporting us over there, watching over on Rumble. We love you guys. All right, and so we'll leave it there. One final reminder to check out our new website. I know I keep saying it, but we're very proud of it, and we've got a lot of additional stuff coming. So robertgovea.com, including the merch shop, which should be launching any day now. I know I've been saying that for about a month, but it's true. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. YouTube members, don't forget to join us on Telegram so you can hang out as well. You can get your Field of Greens courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. And big thanks to the mods and the meme smiths out there modding down the fort for us. And so we are going over to locals, and we are going to do an unboxing. Vienticus Prime sent us this lovely gift, and we're going to unbox this whole thing and explore it over on locals. And so thanks, V, for sending that. And thanks, V. We'll share what it is with everybody else, but we'll do the unboxing on locals. So thank you, V, for sending that. It's very cool. I have an idea of what it is, but I haven't seen it yet. Thank you to V. Thank you to K Bean and to Just Cause and our friend Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu's in the house, which I think is now with an X. Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek. We've got Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey all in the house. Big thanks to our meme smiths, including Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dogly, and our friend Nathan N810, who meme it up for us. We appreciate everybody who helps to keep this show nice and orderly and beautified as well. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it right there. We will be back here tomorrow to do it all again, and I hope to see you here. Thank you for subscribing and joining so that we don't miss you, because tomorrow we're going to be here, and we're going to need to see you so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.